Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode we're talking about Colin Kaepernick, the much awaited, much requested sort of topic that many of you guys have requested, and I took my time a bit with him data-wise because I was finishing up a big project when it comes to data. Now, as you know, I already do a ton of data stuff. I've spent 4 years up to this point collecting data, and the more data I collect, the more I don't know. Like that really sums it up to me. Because the more data you get, the more questions get asked, the more innovation happens. Because you start to think about things, you start to test things, you start to test hypothesis after hypothesis until you actually get to some things that make sense, and I think that, I spent the last couple weeks collecting offensive split data, which is just things like first down completion percentage, what they do on 3rd and 10, and all that kind of stuff, on top of other data like strength of schedule data, how tough the schedule was, how good the offense is, how good the defense is, and a lot of this, of course, was really helped by Pro Football Reference. And I'm going to leave all the terms that I'm using that I don't think you might be too familiar, like the terms that aren't very self-explanatory. I am going to leave in the description. So if you're not really familiar with high school production data, you don't really understand college production data at the quarterback level. If you don't understand what strength of schedule score is, I'm going to leave all that stuff in the description, just to kind of explain how I got those scores and how I do all this stuff. So, with Colin Kaepernick, what we're going to look at, we're going to look at what he did in high school and college, because most of my work, as you guys should know if you are familiar with it, what a quarterback does in high school and college, again, both those areas, can say a lot about what they can do at the NFL level. Very good NFL quarterbacks did really well in high school, and they did really well in college. The vast majority of those guys did. And as much as people want to deny that and say, oh, that's BS, it's all about heart, it's all about this, it's all about that, I'm not denying heart. I'm just saying that based on data, if you're really good in high school and you're really good in college and you go to the NFL, highly likelihood you're going to be really good in the NFL. And there definitely is other variables involved, again, there always are, and that's basically my goal, is to figure out what those other variables are to make data more accurate and more dependable. But I think at this point, the basics of quarterbacks that are really good are usually really good in high school and college. It shouldn't be controversial. Like, that shouldn't be a controversial take. It should be common sense. So I'm going to be getting into that stuff, and then I'm also going to be getting into his actual NFL data, specifically the basics, which I call the basics, which are just the main stats that people are familiar with. And then we're going to look at stats, which, again, from that offensive split data I was talking about, which I think is a little bit underlooked, or people really don't know how to use that data properly also. And I think the method that I do can actually show how to actually utilize that data more often now. And we'll get to that when we get to that. So with all that out of the way, let's get to Colin Kaepernick and what he looked like in high school and college based on his data. So starting with his high school and FBS production data. Again, if you're not familiar with the terms, I'm going to leave the terms in the description for these sort of terms. But basically, 100% of long-term starting quarterbacks since the 2007 NFL draft class had at least a score of 69 or higher when it comes to their high school production score. And that is 100%, people. there are no outliers. There are no dudes. If there were, I tell you, but at this point there aren't. And then, of course, when it comes to Pro Bowlers, multiple Pro Bowl types, so we're talking guys like Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, all those guys, they had at least a 84 score in high school. At least a 84 score in high school when it comes to their high school production data. So you're looking for guys in high school to perform at that level. I mean, that's what you want. You want a guy who has Pro Bowl potential. I mean, I hope that's what you want. So that is basically how that works. And when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, he had Pro Bowl potential based on his high school production. He had a 91.05 overall high school production score out of Turlock compared to his peers. And that's very good. You know, it hits at least a Pro Bowl threshold. It might have been why some teams were interested in him, honestly, if they're using this data, which who knows. When you get to his college data, this is where things kind of break down a bit. His highest college production score was a 70.62 out of 100. Based on my data since the 1958 NFL draft class, because that's how far back I was able to go with FBS data. 26 or higher is for long-term starters, and for the most part, you don't want to be below average when it comes to being a long-term starter. We're talking fringe guys. I think the only guy that was a high-quality NFL starter who was below average when it comes to FBS stat production was Matt Hasselbeck. So, yeah, Matt Hasselbeck and a sea of other dudes, if you will. So you don't really want to be below average, which Colin Kaepernick wasn't below average. He just didn't hit the Pro Bowl threshold when it came to his college production of 80 or higher. Now, 95% of multiple Pro Bowl quarterbacks and all pro quarterbacks since the 1958 NFL draft class, they hit at least 80 or higher when it came to their production score. With the exceptions of Michael Vick, Drew Bledsoe, Brett Favre, and Matt Hasselbeck, like I mentioned before. And I'm going to do a video on those guys because I'm thinking of just dropping the Pro Bowl and All-Pro stuff all together, only because, you know, there is some of these guys went to Pro Bowls because of their athletic ability, not really because of their passing ability, and also there's some things in the data that kind of backs up the fact that they did become Pro Bowl players, but they weren't really the best when it came to their statistics at the NFL level. In particular, guys like Drew Bledsoe wasn't really the best guy, you know, and I'm going to do a video on him. But the bottom line is that Colin Kaepernick looked like a long-term starter, potentially. I mean, he had the high school data. He had at least a high enough score to be considered a long-term starter. He just didn't have all the other pieces in place to be considered like a multiple Pro Bowl, multiple All-Pro type. And I think that's the only issue with Colin Kaepernick is he would have to become an outlier to become that type of guy. And just having a quick look at his overall college production, so this is just his overall career in college, it was, you know, okay. He's had issues when it comes to his completion percentage, which we'll get into that at the NFL level. But that's really the only issues in most of his career is he didn't really have the best completion percentage until he got to 2010, his senior year at Nevada. And his yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, also kind of took a slump in 2008 to 2009. And he realistically was kind of you know, throughout most of his career at Nevada. So that's the only sort of issue with him when it comes to his college data. Then, of course, we get to his NFL data, and this is the basics. You know, this is Colin Kaepernick's basics. Basics meaning these are statistics that most people are very familiar with. People talk about all the time. Touchdown to interception ratio. People talk about that stat all the time. Completion percentage. People talk about that stat tons. Yards per attempt. People over talk about that statistic. Adjusted yards per attempt. People don't really talk about that enough, but it is important. And quarterback rating, of course, people talk about that as well. So these are the most talked about statistics. Do they matter when it comes to wins? Yes. If you look at 50 percentile higher wins, the averages across the board are above average. When you look at 80 percentile higher wins, the averages across the board are above average. And when you look at 90 percentile higher wins, compared to all the teams since 1969, it matters. And again, 90 percentile higher is basically teams that are getting first round buys. These are teams that are winning 13 wins, 12 wins, 14 wins, 15 wins, etc. 80 percentile hires, teams that are usually winning about 10 wins or higher, and 50 percentile hires, basically above 500 teams. So teams that typically are 500 or better typically perform well in terms of this. And when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, when it comes to the basics, the pure basics of his data, he does have things he does well. One thing you've probably heard a ton of is his touchdown to interception ratio. He has a very good touchdown to interception ratio throughout most of his career, with the exception of 2015. He had a 93.46 in 2016. This is commonly the statistic that everybody points to when they say, oh, well, Colin Kaepernick didn't get signed, look at his touchdown to interception ratio. They always pull up that statistic with him. And I think it's a little misleading, because I think when it comes to quarterback data, you have to look at it from a holistic perspective. You shouldn't look at one data point and use that to extrapolate everything about a player. You need to look at everything. You need to look at data in general is a sort of discipline where it's not so much about taking everything and turning into one number. It's about looking at everything in how it works together. How does all this work to form a good quarterback? And I think when you look at Colin Kaepernick, you can clearly see that as much as he does have a very good touchdown to interception ratio, his completion percentage throughout most of his career has been bad, below average across the board in every single season of his career. And this is full seasons. I do know he played in 2012, but he didn't play enough to qualify for a full season's worth. His yards per attempt has also been pretty brutal, with the exception of 2013. His adjusted yards per attempt has been kind of, it's been a little bit better again in 2013, but not necessarily. And his quarterback rating overall has been pretty much below average as well. So for the most part, he's been below average in very crucial statistics. Completion percentage is very crucial, and we'll get to why it is when we get to the next portion of this video. But he's not someone I would consider to be an above average quarterback. An above average quarterback is someone who is performing at least in the above average range when it comes to these statistics, when it comes to 50 percentile higher wins, when it comes to 80 percentile higher wins and 90 percentile higher wins. Especially if you're talking about a quarterback that you consider to be a top 5 quarterback, they better be performing like a top 5 quarterback or a top 10 quarterback. So when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, just the basics of his data, he has some positives, but he also has lots of negatives. And the last thing I kind of want to touch upon is that he did have some issues. He played a rough strength of schedule. 2015 in particular, based on the data from Pro Football Reference, he had by far one of the toughest schedules on record, with a 99 overall strength of schedule score in 2015. He had some issues, man. He went up against some pretty tough competition and did not perform well at all against that strength of schedule. So, you can say, well, he played really tough competition, but the bottom line is he's just not performing. Like, you want a quarterback who performs well against a tough schedule. That's all I'm trying to say. And then when you actually get to overall team strength, yes, the team took a huge nosedive after 2013, but it wasn't defensive driven. That's one thing I kind of want to make sure that you guys understand, is that I know a lot of people kind of say, well, San Francisco just took a nosedive after 2013 and it was because of the defense and all this kind of stuff. But realistically, what was the biggest driver was the offense. The offense went from an offensive strength of 81.17 compared to every single team since 1969 to a 23.95 in 2014, and then it continually got to its lowest point of a 6.25 in 2015. So offensively speaking, that is the biggest issue. That's the biggest driver. Like, that was the first thing to go, essentially, with the demise of the San Francisco 49ers, was the offense. The offense got progressively worse. The defense got worse too. As you can clearly see, it went from a 96.73 overall defensive strength to a 70.79 and then a 53.73, which, it's a gradual decline, but it definitely is not as steep of a decline as the offense. And I think a lot of that decline has to do with Colin Kaepernick. And I know people don't want to say that and all this kind of stuff, but let me get to the reasons why. Okay, so I talked about all the basic statistics stuff. Now let's get into some cool stuff, at least with offensive split data. Stuff that you probably have not seen before or are familiar with. And you can pause this video right now if you want to look at this chart here. But this chart essentially takes into account what the completion percentage of a quarterback is on first down, second down, third down, fourth down, and then the other splits across the board. How do they do on second and first to 4? How do they do on third and 10? All that stuff is here, guys. So you can pause and look at this. But when you look at Colin Kaepernick when it comes to his completion percentage, and I'm not going to go into detail about every single thing here, but what the basics are that he's not good when it comes to first down completion percentage and second down completion percentage. Even in 2013, where he had arguably one of his better seasons, he was on the strongest team of his entire life in 2013. He was not doing well when it comes to first down and second down completion percentage. In 2014, it was not really that great when it came to first down and second down completion percentage. In 2015, it was a little bit better, but not amazing. And then, of course, in 2016, it was below average overall. And when you compare his completion percentage to first and second down completion percentage to 50% RR wins, 80% RR wins, 90% RR wins, you could see that he's not been in the averages. He's not been in the averages of guys that are, he's been below average. He's been below average where he needs to be for quarterbacks who typically win above 500 in terms of first down completion percentage, second down completion percentage, and third down completion percentage, especially in 2016. And the only praise I can give him is that his third down completion percentage has been pretty decent. In 2013 and 2014 in particular, those were probably his best years when it came to converting on third down when it comes to completions. As you can see in the data set as well, when you get to the actual splits, he performs pretty well on third and 1 to 4, third and 4th to 6, and third and 7 and 9. Doesn't do too well on third and 10. Most quarterbacks don't. At least with the exception of 2015, he was pretty good on third and 10 in 2015. But for the most part, he pretty much does well in terms of third and short, third and shorter situations for the most part of his career. So he's very good when it comes to that particular stuff. But why this is important, because a lot of people, they talk about completion percentage and they kind of go, why does it matter? And it matters because of first down conversion rate, second down conversion rate, third down conversion rate, fourth down conversion rate. Now, what am I talking about when I'm talking about conversion rates? Well, this data right here doesn't deal with completion percentage. It deals with the ability to convert on first down, second down, third down, and fourth down. So essentially, if it's first down and you get a first down on first down, which should be the ideal, you want to get first down on first down. Everybody would. You want that type of sort of conversion rate. For the most part, having a very high completion percentage usually correlates with getting a first down on first down. And it makes sense because if you're not completing the football on first down, you're obviously not converting on first down. Same thing goes with second down, same thing goes with third down. And when you look at his ability to convert first downs into first downs, second downs into first downs, third downs into first downs, etc., you can clearly see that it pretty much matches up with his completion percentage for the most part, with the exception of 2013, where despite the fact that he was really not that great when it came to first down completion percentage, he did have a very good first down conversion rate in 2013 when it came to him as a passer. So that was the only sort of anomaly in his data. But for the most part, he has struggled to turn first downs into first downs, turn second downs into first downs, and he was good at turning third downs into first downs. At least his third down conversion rate was very good in 2013 and 2014, but it just fell off of a cliff in 2015 and 2016. So I mean, and I don't really want to go into fourth down because fourth down is kind of, but he also was pretty decent in fourth down as well when it comes to 2013 and 2014 as well. And this is conversion rate with passing. This isn't rundowns. And when I do running back sort of videos, I'll get into more rundown sort of data stuff. But for the most part, when you look at Colin Kaepernick, it's a continual theme here, as you can tell, which is that he's not good on first down. He's not really good on second down throughout most of his career, but he is good on third down. And at least he was very good in 2 seasons in a row, and then he just fell off a cliff. And this is the rest of the split data for Colin Kaepernick, which I'm not going to talk about all this. You can pause the video and look at this at your leisure and all that kind of stuff if you want. But this is just how his conversion rate looked. This is basically what his conversion rate looked like. Basically the ability to convert on third down and second and 7, etc. So this is just more basic sort of stuff about Colin Kaepernick. So you can pause the video and look at this stuff. So what can we say about Colin Kaepernick? So we looked at all the data. We looked at how he performed in college and high school. We obviously looked at how he did in the NFL. And ultimately, what can we say? What can we conclude from this data? Well, I think the biggest thing we can conclude is, as much as people want to turn Colin Kaepernick into this sort of, he's an amazing quarterback, but the NFL isn't letting him be great and all this kind of stuff, I'm not even being biased here. Colin Kaepernick is not an above average quarterback. He never was an above average quarterback. He was above average in certain things. He was above average when it comes to his third down conversion rate. In 2 seasons, he was really good when it's his completion percentage on third down in 2 seasons, and he's always had a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio. But as a holistic perspective, when you take everything into account, how he does with touchdown to interception ratio, how he does with yards per attempt, how he does with just yards per attempt, how he does with his conversion, when you take every single thing into account with Colin Kaepernick, there are as many positives as there are negatives. That is the best sort of statement I could say. And the real issue here, the real crux of this, like, if I'm an NFL GM, the main thing that's going through my mind if I was to look at this data is Jim Harbaugh, the Jim Harbaugh effect. Because you could see that when Jim Harbaugh was there, he was able to convert on third down pretty dang well. Even when the offensive strength went down in 2014, because overall offensive strength, if you go back to the basics with Colin Kaepernick, the offensive strength went down. Even when it went down, he was still able to convert on third down when Jim Harbaugh was there. It's just that his first down conversion rate and his second down conversion rate just weren't really, he wasn't doing as well as he was in 2013 when it comes to his ability to turn first downs into first downs, particularly. So here you have a quarterback who, under Jim Harbaugh, under a pretty dang good play caller, pretty dang good coach, I might add, was doing pretty dang well with him. And then when Colin Kaepernick had to stand on his 2 feet, he had to embark on his own, like Jim Harbaugh ain't there no more. Everything fell apart. His conversion rate on third down took a giant, steep fall. I mean, we're talking about a guy that went from having an 80 percentile third down conversion rate overall to, I think if I go back and just look at it specifically, it became a 2.82 and a 4.98 in 2016. That is a huge drop, guys. Like, that is amazingly bad. And there's no denying that the team around him got worse. I mean, there's no denying that. But even when the team was amazing around him, even when he was on that team in 2013 and 2012, when the offensive strength was relatively pretty decent and the defensive strength was amazing, even when he was on the team when it was doing that, he still had deficiencies. He still had issues when it came to second down conversion rate. He still had issues when it comes to his yards per attempt and his just yards, sort of area. So I kind of look at it like this. As an NFL GM, if I'm looking at Colin Kaepernick, do I think he's the worst quarterback in the world? No. There are far worse quarterbacks in the NFL than Colin Kaepernick. And it amazes me why he isn't signed. I mean, my general thoughts on the thing is I really don't care about what a man decides to do during a national anthem. I just really, I mean, my biggest thing is it doesn't really affect you. It doesn't really matter. You could really just ignore it and just go on. I don't understand why people are so politically correct about something like that. However, I can understand why GMs, because again, everything is cost-benefit analysis with GMs, and it's with everything. If I have a guy who is a little bit of a distraction, I have a guy who, makes part of my fan base angry, whether it's justified or not. You can't deny that there are crazy people that are part of the fan base that don't like what he's doing and legitimately want to boycott him because of what he's doing. Whether that's right or wrong from a moral standpoint or just from a general common sense standpoint is a whole different discussion. But the bottom line is people are literally want to boycott your football games because of this quarterback. And when you look at the data, you see a quarterback that is not above average. He's not above average, and he wasn't. He had legitimate struggles in college when it comes to his completion percentage. For most of his career in college, that stuff's creeped back into things. He never really was a guy that was going to hit multiple Pro Bowls in college, based on the data. Again, I mean, if you go back to what he looked like in college, he did not look like a guy who was going to become a multiple Pro Bowl quarterback. And then when you look at the NFL, some of the same issues he had in college continue to plague him. It's just now we have a very specific way of looking at what those issues are. And again, it's just cost-benefit analysis. Is a sort of average to below average quarterback in these particular things that matter to winning. It matters to winning. You need to be able to convert first downs into first downs to win football games. You need to convert second downs into second downs to win football games. You need to have a good completion percentage because a good completion percentage on all those downs facilitates getting first downs on those downs and contributes to winning. And when you have a quarterback who doesn't do well in everything from a holistic standpoint, when you look at everything together, and you start to see a pattern that he's not good when it comes to first down and second down completion percentage. He's not that great when it comes to conversion rate as a result of those issues. He's not very good when it comes to his first down and second down conversion rate. You just have to sit back and go, this is a quarterback who has deficiencies that are going to prevent me from winning football games. And on top of that, he has other stuff off the field, which is literally going to cause people to boycott, football games. It's just not worth it. So again, I don't, as I try to reiterate, I don't think Colin Kaepernick is the worst quarterback ever. He's not. There have been by far worse quarterbacks, and many quarterbacks that are actually starters in the NFL, which is a scary thought, but it's true, which makes it all the worse that he isn't signed. However, I can understand from the standpoint that what we're talking about is a quarterback who has real deficiencies when it comes to his ability to perform in very specific things that matter to winning football games. And the fact that there still is the idea, which maybe it's true, maybe it's not, is that a lot of Colin Kaepernick's success has to do with Jim Harbaugh. And without Jim Harbaugh, he wasn't able to stand on his 2 feet, and people are realistically going to hold that against him. Whether that's a legit argument or not, I don't really think it is, but I think there is enough evidence to point towards that once Jim Harbaugh left, he wasn't really able to stand on his 2 feet and make the strides he needed to make to become a better passer. And yeah, the team around him got worse, but it just is what it is. It's the NFL. You have to perform. You have to win football games. If you don't perform, if you don't win football games, you hit the bricks. So should Colin Kaepernick be signed by a team? Absolutely. Should he be your NFL starting quarterback? I don't really think so. As a last resort, I mean, again, it depends on the situation. If you are the Denver Broncos, for example, and you have the situation at quarterback that they have, and I've already done a video on the Denver Broncos, I don't understand why Colin Kaepernick isn't on your team right now, considering that he can do things better than a lot of the guys on your team right now. Because a lot of the guys on that team have issues, across the board. Worse issues, like Trevor Siemian is across the board not as good as Colin Kaepernick from a holistic standpoint. So I can understand that standpoint, but at the same time, I can understand why GMs would not want to sign a quarterback when the benefits don't outweigh the costs. And that's the only thing I can really say, is the benefits really don't outweigh the costs, guys. And as much as people want to, and again, people will point out lots of stuff. People, will be in my mentions. They'll comment. They'll do a bunch of stuff and say, "Well, he's really good in this. I mean, I went over everything with you guys. Every single statistic I went over. I went over everything I could possibly think of, short of PFF data, which you can go to PFF if you want that. I'm just giving you the other stuff, the other data." That doesn't always get highlighted. So, based on everything, I think you get my point. So again, my name is James Cobern. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.